Last episode, we got the bulk of the engine and the transmission in the car and did all the little mechanical bits around it, but there's still a lot of mechanical bits to do, as well as a whole lot of wiring and a whole lot of figuring out how the hell to wire in a standalone ECU. Now that last part may sound impossible, but luckily I pretty much have a whole harness already custom made. I just need to wire this into the body harness and then find a way to mount my ECU. There's plenty of parts left to install, but to be honest, I'm a lot happier because my trunk is no longer full of parts and my table is also relatively clean compared to how it looked a few weeks ago with the entire disassembled engine strewn about across the table. There's still a lot of mechanical pieces left to put on this car, and I've got a lot of work to do, so I'm just going to get to it and start on what I can today. I did get one thing done since the last episode, which is I now have a O2 bung welded in here, which will replace this O2 sensor here that is in a completely terrible and wrong place. I talked about this last episode, but long story short, this O2 sensor is going bye-bye, and I have to make some sort of plate to block this off now that this is no longer going to be here, but for now I'm just leaving it in because it's already a block-off plate on its own. It's perhaps not the cleanest weld job in the world, but it's a hell of a lot better than anything I would be able to do if I even have a welder, which I don't, so I'm not going to complain, especially not for 40 bucks. So back on my ECU harness, this is the body side of the harness. I've got these relays here, I've got some fuses down here, ECU connector, then I've got these free gray plugs in the middle, and this is essentially what goes to my body, or what I have to kind of wire in. So I've got the other free ends of these connectors. Basically I'm doing a whole bunch of this work where I have the connector here, and I just have to crimp these pins here onto the end of a wire, shove it into the back of this, and then put this plastic piece on here to make sure that all the pins stay in place. I did it for one of my connectors, but I haven't done it for the main one yet that carries CAN bus and a whole bunch of other little signals that are probably important for the car. Luckily, a lot of the things that I need to wire in come off of this plug here, which I still have the wiring harness for. I don't know exactly what's what on this end of the harness, but I did write everything down when I took it out to kind of keep track of what went where and what probably does what. We're just going to extend a whole bunch of these wires to where they need to go, and then more importantly test them to see if they do exactly what we think they do, and then we'll have to label them all accordingly because otherwise we'll never be able to keep track of it. Now, in order to test what a lot of these wires do, or rather when they have power and when they don't, I need to have the battery plugged in, which it's not, and to be able to safely do that I still need to put on a whole bunch of ground straps in the engine, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first and plug in anything that's on the engine already. Do you see how shitty, like, all of this is? Like, none of this is quality. I mean, I'm a DIY mechanic too. Like, I do this shit in my backyard, in my garage, but I can do better than this. Alright, I got a lot of stuff on this side to do, and I'm going to put my starter motor in so I don't mix up my starter cable and the ground strap. That's the other thing. They're both black cables, interestingly. Alrighty, that's on. The wheel filter is also a lot easier to access with the header out of the way. Here's the part number for anyone that needs it. Okay, this ground strap is easy because it's too big to mess up. However, all my other ground straps, I have no idea where they go. Alright, I hooked up my alternator and the ground strap down in there, and all the ground straps on this side. I got one there, and then I just put up the other one to the VVTi solenoid. I'm pretty sure that's where it was before, and honestly that's the only place where it has enough length to run to anyways. So much wiring shit in the way of this. Alright, now we're no longer crushing half of the wiring. This is the part I feel scared of. I'm gonna put my positive on. That should be fine. But then if I touch this guy, are we gonna short anything or blow up? Huh? Everything sounds okay so far. Hopefully it stays that way. I've disconnected so many wires in here that I don't know what is and isn't connected anymore, so that's why I'm afraid of something going wrong. You know, maybe there's just a positive lead somewhere, somehow, that's gonna short and isn't fused because this car has been worked on. You know, it just occurred to me that this battery might be dead. It has just been sitting in the trunk for, what, 8 months now? Alright, let's see what we're at here. Oh, 11.9, we're not dead. When it comes to starting this car, we're definitely going to put a battery tender on here, or at least a jump starter box or something so that we can boost the voltage of this to over 12. Alright, so I just realized a little problem with my plan here. I was going to turn on the key and then just start testing what does and doesn't have 12 volts. Then I remembered when my fuel pump gets powered, It's going to send fuel pressure to this guy here, which is my fuel line that doesn't have anywhere to go right now. I have this little 1/4-inch drive extension clamped down inside of here, but I don't know if this is going to really hold up to fuel pressure. Port injected, which means it's not super high pressure, but it is some pressure, and I'm going to point that down there so that in case that does come on, it'll at least spray down onto the floor and not onto me. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm kind of stupid. There should be a fuse somewhere in here that is for fuel. Took out both EFI main and EFI fuse. That one's out and that's out. So now I should be able to put the negative terminal on, and we should be able to turn the key and not hear the fuel pump prime. Well, I see the door symbol is on, so I know we have power. See what happens. Oh, thank God. I wonder which door is open. Oh, duh. Alright, so I got my little setup here. I put that connector on that has this messy wiring harness here that I'm going to reuse bits of. I'd like to label each one of these so I actually know what's what, and I can extend it and clean it up a lot more so that it doesn't look like this piece of shit. So in order to do that, I'm going to write everything down and make some labels for each wire. I'm not going to record this. You know it's boring. I got pretty much everything labeled here, except for two that I don't know. This yellow wire sticking out, and this long black wire with little red dots on it. That said, now I do have a good idea as to what everything else is on here, which means I'll have a much easier time wiring everything else up. I finished setting up this connector here. This is for my CAN lambda unit. It's just got this twisted braid coming off of it. That's for the CAN bus. That connector and twisted wire is for this CAN lambda module. This is basically an adapter for O2 sensor to CAN bus for Link ECU in particular. I made a big deal about the fact that I had no clue what that skinny black and red wire was there, and also this short yellow wire coming off here. Not sure why I didn't just look at my notes from before, because I specifically wrote all this down. The big yellow one went to BF on my ECU, and also went to the injector harness, so it was just a power supply wire, I'm guessing. And then perhaps more importantly, that black wire is my tack. So that tack wire gets wired into one of my digital or aux outputs here, so that I can send a signal to the tack every time the cylinder fires. I'm pretty sure it'd be more complicated if I had the digital tack, but luckily I have the old analog one, so this should be pretty simple to hook up. Keyword is should, because I have no idea what I'm doing. Then I waited all day for this Amazon package to come in, so let's see what we got. I got some butt connectors, some relays, some fuses, and a pack of 100 resistors because I needed one of them. Also, I apologize for having terrible lighting on this side of my garage. All my lights are over there and there's virtually nothing over here. But I did put my harness in. I haven't really done anything in particular to install it other than just route it roughly to where it needs to be. I installed it by pushing everything through this hole here, so I didn't have to push everything out this way. I pushed it in that way. It was a little tricky getting all these connectors to go through here, but with a little perseverance and being careful to not squish anything or shove it too hard, I got everything through here. I don't know how cable management's going to go down here in terms of how much space I have to work with for everything, but we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. Also have to find somewhere to mount my ECU. It was originally mounted somewhere on this wall. I don't even remember where now. There's a whole load of shit in there to deal with, but that's not my problem right now. Putting these things together is kind of the bane of my existence, if not only because I don't have the correct tooling for it. The way it works is that there's all these little pins like this, and you crimp them down using something like this, although this is a cheap Amazon tool that was for probably the wrong size, because I had no idea what size these were, so I ordered the wrong one, and I didn't want to return it. Basically, you cut off some wire, you stick it on the end of that, and then you stick that in here, and you just go whoop, and it crimps it down like that. The problem is that these barely fit inside of here, and it is a pretty bad crimp, which doesn't even really crimp it much at all. So then I go and I finish it off with these pliers. My crimps with these tools are definitely not the best, and if I run into any electrical issues as a result of them, I take full responsibility for not having the right tools. That said, if you do have the right tools, these connectors are actually pretty easy to do and pretty good. You're pushing all the pins through these little rubber double seals. I think this is a hermetic seal. These are called Deutsch connectors, by the way. Basically, you push the pins through this seal, although it's a little tight on mine, so that's why I have the seal out. And then the pins just get pushed all the way in there, and they have these little fingers that you can see inside there that lock them in place so that they can't get pushed back out. And then when you have all the pins in there, you just take some piece like this that they give you, and you push that inside, and when you're done, it'll look something like this, or this. Anyways, now that the harness is in the car, I have a much better idea as to where everything is going to sit and how I'm going to cable manage in here, so I'm going to start hooking up things that I actually need to hook up. In other words, I'm going to put this clamp where it's supposed to go over here and start running all the necessary wires. I found my ignition switch and I found my starter, and I think everything else I have on here. So we should be good to go. Oh, I probably should have mentioned what all these fuses and relays and other parts are for. The butt crimps are just because I already have some, but these are a smaller size and they have heat shrink already built onto them. This is a pack of relays because I need one of them for the CAN lambda module. It has this for the wiring schematic. We need a fuse and a relay to run for the power source. So that's what that guy is for. And then the fuses are, of course, so that I can have a in-wire fuse. There's a cleaner way to do all this stuff, but to be honest, I'm kind of just doing it for the first time, and I can go back and do it later if it's really an issue. It's really just how clean or not clean everything looks because it's already functional. I mean, you can see that there's already plenty of shitty wiring in here, but a lot of it still works. Despite the whole mess of wiring that's down in here, whatever this competition system is for the headlights, it still works because even with the battery kind of dead, I can still flip up the pop-up headlights. Oh yeah, just like an initial D. Alright, enough rambling. I'm gonna get some shit done and I'll come back when I have some progress. Alright, I got this shit all wired up, so time to move on to some other things. So here's the deal. This is my O2 sensor, and that is hooked up via this CAN lambda module. And in order to know where this sits, I need to know where my O2 sensor reaches to, which also means that I need to have my exhaust manifold on so I know where my O2 sensor is going to sit. And if this goes as well as last time, I should be able to drop this in from up top. Although last time I don't think my starter was in there, so we're going to see how this goes. I remember the way I got it out was that it came out down through the bottom, so I might need to push it back up from the underside. I have absolutely no clue how I got this in before. Oh, okay. You can just slide it past that. Ah, there we go. You know, just looking at it, I don't think my O2 sensor is going to get that far. I'm pretty happy with how my position for the O2 sensor turned out because when I took this to the shop, I kind of just had a Sharpie mark around here as to where it's supposed to be. Basically, if they welded this angled up too much, it would be hitting this and none of this would fit and I'd have to get it all redone. But luckily, it seems like everything worked out. And if you're wondering why I bothered to angle it up so much, it's because you can't have it straight or coming down here because then moisture can accumulate on the sensors. So if we snake this guy up along the firewall here, it comes about to just where my ECU wire comes out of the firewall. Alright, I'm tired of wiring, but there's some more mechanical things we need to get done first. Also, I'm pretty much out of black and red wire, so I need to go buy more wire anyways. I need to make brackets for stuff like this so that I actually know how long to run my wire lengths. But first I'm going to get some simpler things done. I've got my slave cylinder steel line here, as well as a new slave cylinder to install, so let's go ahead and get that on the car first. Apologies if the lighting is pretty shit down here. I would open the garage door normally, but it's windy as shit out there, and I don't love you guys that much. Oh, look at that. Wasn't seized. Yeah, my favorite part of working on slave cylinders is the part where toxic brake fluid drips down at you. It's really fun. And at some point here, when I actually get the line off of here, it's all gonna come flowing out. And I don't know which way it's gonna go. That brake shit smells. I haven't smelled brake fluid like that before. What the hell are they using? You know, there's a lot of little things I complain about on this car, but the fact that basically every fastener is one of 4 or 5 sizes makes it really easy to work on when you're under the car and you don't have all your tools with you. Like even the aftermarket part that I'm putting on here, this Techno Toy Tuning stainless steel line, has a 17mm on the big end and a 14mm on that end, which are both the same kind of sizes I'm already using for the original part. I know there's manufacturing constraints that usually make that a little more difficult sometimes, but it's just really nice when you come across it. I mean, even the bleed screw on the slave cylinder here is a 10mm, which is a common size, of course. I'm so tired of bleed screws on brake calipers and slave cylinders being weird sizes like 9 or 7mm. Just make it a 10mm. Everyone has a 10mm wrench. Oh, is there another clip I'm supposed to reuse? Yeah, there's a C clip on here. It's got this little circlip here that you need to reuse. Alright, that should be nice and tight. Aside from bleeding, I think all my work is done here. When I installed my header, I completely forgot to put the bolts in down here for the actual exhaust flange, so I'm going to take care of that. Alright, I took my timing cover off so I can make sure that I'm at top dead center all around. I don't really have a clear view of the crank. That said, I did install everything loosely. This is the Hall effect sensor for my crankshaft. It basically just sits in here like this. I adjust exactly how far in it needs to sit. I haven't tightened everything up down there though, because the instructions do say that I might need to grind one of these teeth off to know where top dead center is, and I don't really know what I'm doing regarding that. It's one of those things I'm going to leave open-ended for now, and then when I plug in my ECU and hopefully look at what's on the base map or tune, I'll be able to tell what's what. Also, I bled my clutch. The fluid in here was really dirty and crappy, but I got most of it out. Luckily, when I drained that line, it just kind of took everything out. But now my clutch pedal, it doesn't feel perfect, but I think it's good enough. Honestly, it still feels like there's some air in my clutch line, potentially. It's pretty soft, but it does come back all the way. And I don't really remember what this car felt like, so we're gonna find out the hard way. Yeah, now I got my seat position adjusted. That does not feel correct. Yeah, there's only like pressure for like the last half of the pedal, so I don't think that's really correct. All right, I've been avoiding this long enough. I need to make a bracket that goes in here to hold both this guy and to hold the relay that's gonna go right next to it. I think this little cubby is a good area for this because this needs to not get hotter than 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which, you know, we're on the whole exhaust header side here, so it's a little hard to avoid. I loosely just reinstalled the wiper tank and the windshield wiper motor so that I know how much space I have to work with in here. I think this is a nice little cubby away from the exhaust manifold, so it should keep it cool. 212 degrees Fahrenheit is boiling for water, so if this isn't boiling, I think this will be a safe location. Alternatively, I could just put it somewhere in this area because there's already a bunch of electrical components down here, but I'm worried about too much noise in the CAN bus since I don't have a shielded wire, so I'm just going to put it back in here. It'll also make my CAN bus run a bit shorter. That was probably the wrong tool for the job. I 3D printed this little template that's the same size as the Link ECU hole spacing so that I can just use this as my template and drill against this. So I didn't place this hole very well, so here we go for round 2. And then one more down here for the relay. Alright, let's go see how well this guy fits. So I decided to mount up everything in here like this. My CAN lambda unit is tucked in here. I think that way it'll be on the opposite side of the aluminum from the exhaust, so it should stay nice and shielded in here. I also have my relay attached down here, still working on the wiring for that. To get either of these two out, you're definitely going to need to take this whole bracket out, but I don't think that's much of an issue considering it's only this one bolt here. Now going inside the car, I was looking for where to mount my ECU. So the original one has these free tabs coming off here. And basically it was mounted in somewhere right around here. I can see there's a bolt hole down there, up there, and I can't really see the one back there, but I know it's there. My new bracket looks like this. I found some screws for it, luckily that fit. These are countersunk holes. Basically this bracket will sit somewhere and this will just get clipped onto the back of it. For all this, I'm going to 3D print something that goes in here. I don't really have any other way of doing it to get it accurate. The original ECU is kind of spaced off of the wall a little bit here to allow some wires like this one here to pass underneath. So between that and getting all 3 of these holes lined up, I think it'd just be a lot easier to 3D print something. I'm not really worried about grounding because this whole housing here is plastic anyways, so it doesn't really make any metal contact with this plate. Everything should be grounded through here anyways. There's already a ground pin and a sensor ground pin as well. And then obviously my whole harness has multiple grounds on it as well. So unfortunately I'm out of time for this video. I gotta get this video up tonight, but I want to show you guys a few little things that I did find on this car that are little curiosities, I guess. So this valve cover has 2 crank vent ports. It has this one on the front that has always been hooked up to the ITBs. That's not a problem. But then there's this other one on the back. And ever since I got this car, this originally just had a hose coming off of it that snaked down to somewhere down there where the subframe is. It just bottomed out, dead-ended, didn't really go anywhere. Now, when I first got this car, I was having issues with it occasionally stalling, especially when it was up to temperature. So I was looking for anything that was a potential vacuum leak, and I found that since that hose kind of just led to nowhere. Well, on doing my research, I found that people said that this was originally supposed to go back into the intake. This is just another crank vent breather hose, just like this one. But the ITBs don't really have a setup for that. On the car that this came out of, the intake is kind of like right here, since this was originally a transverse mounted engine. So this would have gone pretty close to the intake and there was just a rubber hose that went into the intake. Well, we don't really have that. So what we're supposed to do is something like this. This is a little crank breather vent filter. Basically, air is going to be going in more often than it's coming out, or at least so I'm told by a random person on the forums. If we put this on there, it should help us with preventing a vacuum leak on that area, and also prevent any fumes from just spouting out and getting the whole engine bay dirty. Hopefully that works, but if it doesn't, we'll have to get a catch can set up. Now, the other thing I've been trying to figure out is my heater hose setup. These two coolant hoses that come out of the firewall here are for the heater core inside, and I've never really had the AC or heater working very well in this car, and I don't really know why. There's a lot of things that aren't really done right about this swap, or that were kind of half-assed, so I figured it was just one of those many things that I was going to have to fix. But coming off the bottom of one of these heater hoses here was this little doohickey that I couldn't really figure out what it did. I mean, it looked like a valve of sorts, but no matter how you turn this guy here, nothing changes. But what I found out is that you have to just pull on it, and that's what closes the valve. So this is kind of like a manual valve for the heater core in particular. I guess in hot weather you would shut this off, in cold weather you would open it up. This is not how it's done OEM whatsoever. I don't even know if this is really meant for automotive or not. These two holes here would normally have a little mounting bracket that has a valve coming off of it. The heater hose would go into that valve and then come out. And this little rubber nozzle here would be where there'd be a little cable coming out that I'm guessing is attached inside to the whole climate control system. And that cable would pull on the valve to open or close it accordingly. So clearly I'm missing a lot more parts for my heater system than I thought. I'm just gonna hook all that up for now as it was, even though I know it's not right, because this project is already getting out of hand as it is, and I need to just wrap it up. Now, there's plenty of work left to be done on this car in general, and if you want to see more of that, you should go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. It's free, and it helps me out tremendously. If you want to support the channel more directly, then go ahead and head over to my Patreon. Link is down in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.